Alrighty, folks, it is time for the finals of Grand Prix Everrime here in November of 2025, the third and final standard Grand Prix of the Exalts of Twiltree season, and indeed the final standard Grand Prix for Revolution of 2025. Next month will be Eternal. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the intro, but this is a standard tournament. We're going to talk about standard here. We've got a pretty fun matchup here between two pretty powerhouse players, DrChipmunk and Lihlosaur, who have been doing incredibly this year, and they're putting it on the line against each other, having a very familiar showdown at this point for the two of them. Before we get into deck lists and the match, let's talk a little bit of housekeeping. Specifically, if you are interested in checking out the format for yourself, links in the description below are to all resources that you might need for Revolution Custom Standard, that being the Custom Magic Discord server, where you can check out set projects as people are working on them and join in for Revolution play as well. The link to the Revolution Compendium for a curated list of cards pulled together by the format's management team for all recommendations for your decks, sorted by the roles the cards serve, and the links to the 2-card search engines, where you can take a look through the full gallery of cards for the sake of building your deck, those being the Lackeybot and Escape from Limbo search engines. Additionally, 2 links you won't normally see in the description that are down there, and I'll have an info card up on screen for both of these as they read them out as well, so they're going to be at the top right of your screen right about now. First off, you can check out DrChipmunk's perspective on this match on that first link right now. As one of our 2 finalists here, she made another really successful run this month, and her video is up now. You can check that out. And also, I mentioned there is Eternal coming up next month. If you want a brief refresher, I have a 3-part series from last December talking about what Eternal is, the sets that are currently available in Eternal, and sort of contextualizing what there is to do with that. I will also let you all know now that with December's patch on its way, I will be folding in any like sort of updates, thoughts about like how to adapt to Eternal from a year later into that patch notes video. So if you want to get an early start sort of digging into Eternal, I highly recommend you check out my 3-part series, the first of which will, again, be linked in the description and on the info card right now. And then look forward to the December patch notes video, where I will be talking a little bit more about prep for Eternal in 2025. So, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about Envoy of the Fallen. Envoy of the Fallen is probably the biggest beneficiary from the Cliques of Nylon buff patch, though I do want to preface this and say, as far as I'm aware, it has been publicly confirmed that Envoy is slated for change in the December balance patch. So Envoy is not lasting in its current state. I don't know to what degree it will be receiving a change, but it will be receiving a change. As it stands currently, though, this 4-mana 3/3 that has lifelink casts the New Capenna card patch up on an enter, which is to say it reanimates any number of creature cards from your graveyard with mana value 3 or less total. And then has a free sack outlet, so you sacrifice another creature to deal 1 to each opponent, has put in some work this month. If I recall correctly, 4 players brought it to this month's GP with 2 camps of 2 players each. There was a combo brew, sort of a mid-rangey combo build, and there was an all-in sacrifice Aristocrats build. Both of those camps got a player into this finals, and so we're going to get to see both of those strategies in action across this series. Let's kick off with our player on the higher seed, DrChipmunk, playing Toy Soldiers, the combo build. This is built around Karina's Substitute, a 3-drop you can reanimate with Envoy's Enter trigger, and can have Enter as a copy of Envoy, except it would be a 1/4 toy in addition to its other types. Importantly, with 2 substitutes in your graveyard, one can come back, copy the Envoy to get back the other, and be sacrificed to the original Envoy before its Enter trigger resolves, allowing you to loop the 2 substitutes back and forth and deal infinite damage to the opponent. that combo is backed up by a lot of mid-range value. Exorcist of Errors is a really solid disruptive 2-drop, picks away your opponent's hand. Fabricated Anomaly is really good at building up your board and giving you a lot of card selection. Venture Capitalist is another buff from Cliques of Nylon, gives you a bit of a toolbox aspect, can go find silver bullet artifacts that you might need, can sacrifice artifacts to add mana of any color. So, you can kind of just pop artifacts as you go by if they're no longer important to give you mana going into your combo turn. And you can go find those, more disruptive or more value-generating artifacts as needed. And at 5 mana, you can cast Venture Capitalist, exile Karina's Substitute from your library, and cast Karina's Substitute to go find one of your combo pieces, if need be. From there, there's another playset of creatures in Ignited Soul, cheap, evasive 1/1 that just rummages when it hits a player, so more card selection there. And again, Ignited Soul, Fabricated Anomaly, their card selection comes by way of discarding cards to draw cards, so that puts cards in your graveyard to try and get Karina's Substitutes in the bin, so that way Envoy of the Fallen can reanimate it when it enters. From there, there's 3 more creatures that are all one-ofs. Herald of Awakening is a little bit more rummaging and just like a cheap defensive card against aggro. Programmed Pursuer is a little bit more value-oriented. There's a 3-mana 1/4 with Death Touch that draws you a card and has you lose 1 life when it hits an opponent. That's for any artifact creature you control hitting an opponent, but it's really the only one that's going to reliably do so. That is fine on its own. This is still a really annoying attacker, and one attack creatures are really good to swing in with Fabricated Anomaly in play because of how well it buffs up those stats. So 1 power becomes 2 pretty soon thanks to a Fabricated Anomaly, and blocking a 3-mana 2/5 is a headache and a half. There's also 1 copy of Whitecliff Pilgrim as a bit of additional card draw, drawing you a card once each turn. Whenever a creature entering causes an ability you control to trigger. So that is the enter trigger on Fabricated Anomaly, on Venture Capitalist, on Exorcist of Errors, on Karina's Substitute, on Herald of Awakening. Like, there's a lot of creatures with enter triggers for Whitecliff Pilgrim. Envoy triggers Whitecliff Pilgrim. Karina's Substitute, copying any of these creatures, triggers Whitecliff Pilgrim. So lots of additional churn there for some additional value generation. That is backed up by 4 Sovereign's Execution as some pretty efficient removal, destroying a creature or planeswalker at instant speed for 2 mana, and only taxing you 3 life if your life total hasn't changed that turn. 3 copies of All That Remains for some additional dig. 3-mana instant that looks at top 3, puts 1 in hand, rest into bin. And you can flash it back for a single black mana and discard a card. So really good at helping you find the envoys, get the substitutes in the bin, dig for the things that you really need. 2 more artifacts here in Stella's Journal and Archaic Obelisk. Journal being a bit more card selection, or like card advantage in the mid to late game. Off of a Venture Capitalist, costs 1 less for each differently named land you control. Enters with X page counters, where X is currently triple X. So with 6 unique land types, 6 unique land names, this is already 2 page counters for 0 mana. And at your end step, you draw up to the number of cards in hand equal to your page counters. So if you have 3 cards in hand and you have 5 page counters on Stella's Journal, you draw up to 5. More realistically, if you have 2 page counters on Stella's Journal, you draw up to 2 if your hand is empty at end of turn. Or you draw 1 card if you have 1 card in hand. Archaic Obelisk is a little bit more value generation while also filling your bin for your envoys. Enters with a charge counter on it. You can tap and mill 2 cards. Then you can remove the charge counter to return a card it mills to your hand. Obelisk Obelisk and All That Remains also point us to another really important thing here, which is that Envoy is a combo piece in this deck, but it is also a value piece, because while you can Envoy for a substitute and get the chain going, you can also Envoy for Ignited Soul plus Exorcist of Errors to, get a bit more rummaging in play and also disrupt the opponent. You can Envoy for a Programmed Pursuer to just put good bodies in play. You can Envoy for a Fabricated Anomaly. Like, their fair Envoy in this deck is going to be more common than you might initially expect from hearing that it's a combo deck, because it is a combo mid-range plan. There is another artifact here on this row in Warpway Rings. Basically an Evolving Wilds, but it is an artifact land, so in a pinch, if you don't have a land drop for the turn, Venture Capitalist can go find your tapped land drop and turn it into any basic land. 4 copies of Primal Fisher as a bit of a faster basic fetch. We've got 7 shock lands here between 2 Misty Peak, 2 Enigmatic Fen, and 3 Sanguine Palace, so black and red. Not really surprising to see as being the most important colors with how little blue shows up in the creature base and the instant base here. 1 copy each of Murky Path and Erosive Path, prioritizing the black sources here. 1 copy of Gilded Court for a little more mana fixing. 4 swamps, 1 island, 3 mountains, and 1 Hazak district, which really is going to want you to find either that island or the Gilded Court to make it come into play untapped. And that's it for the main deck. No sorceries, no enchantments, no planeswalkers, just kind of keeping it simple, creatures and instants, and a couple Silver Bullet artifacts. Our sideboard here consists of 2 additional copies of Whitecliff Pilgrim for grindy matchups, 1 copy of Crucible of the Burning Sun to kind of shut down opposing graveyard strategies, 1 copy of Golden Bloom of the Silence to stop combo decks or specific hate pieces, depending on the context, 3 copies of Advance of Fire and Faith as a small sweeper for the opposing aggressive strategies, 3 copies of Fiend of the Crimson Pact as a mid-range and control solution for grindier matchups, a 5/5 for 5 with flying that can tutor up anything besides another fiend whenever it hits the opponent. Or a planeswalker, or a battle. And then finally, 2 copies of Frag as some good creature and artifact removal, and 3 copies of Absentia as some hand attack and potentially graveyard hate if need be, either exiling a card with mana value 2 or less from the opponent's hand, or exiling a card from the opponent's graveyard. But either way, you do still look at their hand. So that is Chipmunk's toy soldiers here. And then Lee, meanwhile, is on the more all-in Aristocrats build. This is one I have a little more experience playing against. This deck is quite fearsome when it gets rolling. It is fully capable of turn 4 kills if left unabated. And as we saw, Chip's deck is really good at grinding. There was only 4 pieces of removal in the main. And not really a ton of super fast removal otherwise. There's 2 more copies of Frag, some Absentias. So there is interaction that's coming in the sideboard here from Chip, but Aristocrats here is going to have some real potential. So once again, 4 copies of Envoy of the Fallen, but that is instead flanked by playsets of Godslaughter Titan, a 6 mana 4/4 that costs 1 less for each permanent you've sacrificed this turn to a minimum of 2 mana. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, it deals 2 damage to target opponent unless they exile a permanent they control. And you can play exiled permanents, play exiled cards for as long as they remain exiled, color fixing for them. There's also a playset of Smiling Sludge, 2 mana 1/3 that makes it berry when it enters and deals 1 to the opponent and gains you 1 whenever you sacrifice a non-land permanent. So that's any of your creatures, any treasures that you might make, anything you sacrifice to Envoy of the Fallen. Really good at sort of just ticking up the pain quite significantly from Envoy and from other sacrifice effects, because the sacrifice targets of choice are going to be 4 copies of Omen Skulker, a 1 mana 1/1 that whenever you cast a multicolored spell, it will ping the opponent and gain you 1 life, but more importantly, makes a treasure when it dies, which is joined by 4 copies of Newborn Oni, a 1 mana 1/1 that does the same, making you a treasure when it dies if its power is 2 or greater. And conveniently, you can pay 1 life as a sorcery once each turn to make it +1 power. So if you sacrifice it on your turn, you can give it a +1 power boost before it sacrifices, so that way you can make a treasure there as well. So with 8 1-drops that can make a treasure when they die, that allows you to pretty quickly generate a lot of mana, generate a lot of value from your sacrifice effects, and then Envoy's Enter trigger can recur 3 of them, and then sacrifice all 3 of them to have your 4 mana 3/3 sacrifice outlet pay back 3 of your mana. And if it's paying back that 3 mana in treasure form, then it's not only dealing damage with Smiling Sludges from sacrificing those things and damage with Godslaughter Titans from sacrificing those creatures, but it is also then creating 3 treasures which deal additional damage with Godslaughter Titan and Smiling Sludge. That plan is backed up with a couple more creatures here. 2 copies of Catch Constable is another 1-drop that's worth sacrificing. Makes a 1/1 when it dies, casts for a red or a white. 2 copies of Kage's Mercenary, 3 mana, 3/2 that draws you a card and has you lose 1 life whenever a non-token creature you control dies. I have seen people play, talk about these matchups where Kage's Mercenary nearly decks people. It is stunning how fast this card can just rip through your library, especially when the damage it's dealing you is being mitigated by Envoy and Smiling Sludge. And 3 copies of Inglight Dancer, which is another sacrifice outlet in a pinch. 2 mana, 1/3. You can pay a black and sacrifice a creature to ping the opponent and gain 1 life. And it is also a bit of interaction, with Stroke of Light being a 2 mana instant to give a creature -2/-2 for the turn. Not too often that's going to be super relevant, particularly in this matchup. Chip has a lot of 3 toughness creatures, especially higher up on the curve. But Inglight Dancer is still a nice sack outlet in a pinch as well. And of course, combat tricks are fine in worst case scenario. There's some sorceries and instants to get a bit of value here. 4 copies of Bind Life to Steal, give you some redundancy on Envoy's Enter trigger. X, a white-black hybrid, white-black hybrid, for a sorcery that reanimates any number of creature cards with total mana value twice X or less from a graveyard to the battlefield. Makes them artifacts in addition to their other types. So for X is 2, you can record 4 mana value worth of things. So for 4 mana, you can rebuy an Envoy of the Fallen, or for more mana, you can rebuy more things. 5 mana total on Bind Life to Steal gets back Godslaughter Titan. If you do, X is 2, you can get back Omen Skulker, Newborn Oni, Smiling Sludge. Bind Life to Steal can be really effective for rebuilding a board, and when coupled with Envoy, makes you really resilient to interaction that is not exile based. There's also 3 copies of Sundering the Fleet and 4 copies of Deadly Dispute as some potent card draw here. Both of them draw 2 cards while having you sacrifice an artifact or creature. Sundering the Fleet does so for a single black mana at sorcery speed. Deadly Dispute does it for 2 mana at instant speed, but does make you a treasure in the process as well. And then finally, there's 1 copy of Aushun's Presence as another gradual sack outlet. This 2 mana enchantment lets you sack a creature at end of combat on your turn. You draw a card no matter what, but it also deals 2 damage to each opponent that creature attacked. So if you can sort of slip in with one of your 1-drops and then get Aushun's Presence to trigger on second at end of combat, you can do 2 additional damage to them while drawing a card from sacrificing the creature. And then this can also become a 3/2 Flying Dragon for 2 additional mana at instant speed. That lasts forever. Beyond that, mana base is not too complicated. 3 each, Swamp and Mountain. 4 copies of Primal Fissure, 4 copies of Sanguine Palace, 3 Enigmatic Fen. So only Enigmatic Fen for blue sources here, except, of course, you have the treasures from Deadly Dispute, Newborn Oni, Omen Skulker, and Envoy is really the only blue card in the main. Everything else is castable off of red or black mana. And Hollowed Chamber is the last little secret silver bullet here to just sort of push a bit of extra damage. This is a land that enters tapped unless you have a basic non-swamp, so in this case, the Mountain. Taps for a black, and you can pay 1 and tap and sacrifice it to make 2 treasure tokens. In that context, what Hollowed Chamber functionally accomplishes for something like Godslaughter Titan is you can pay 1 mana, tap it and sacrifice it. The land you tapped and the Hollowed Chamber itself are 2 lands worth of tapping lands not making mana to make 2 treasure tokens. So you functionally still get the 2 mana immediately if you need it. And if you crack those 2 treasure tokens plus sacrifice the Hollowed Chamber, that's 3 permanents sacrificed to get Godslaughter Titan online. Now consider that perhaps you led on a turn 1 Hollowed Chamber, and you're playing a Primal Fissure on turn 2 to go get that basic Mountain, or perhaps you played Primal Fissure and never cracked it, and then turn 2 you crack it for the Mountain, play Hollowed Chamber untapped. Primal Fissure plus Hollowed Chamber plus 2 treasures is a turn 2 Godslaughter Titan. It is also just nice to kind of bank in a pinch, so you can build up to more pain with Smiling Sludge, which I think is honestly better than rushing out a Godslaughter Titan. But as we talked about, Chip only has so much removal in game 1, so it's not a terrible idea. We'll see if it ends up coming up, though. For Lee's sideboard here, there is an additional copy of Kage's Mercenary. We see 2 Golden Bloom of the Silenced here, serving a very similar role as with Chip, of kind of both shutting down hate pieces and combo pieces depending on the matchup. 1 copy of Willing Acolyte as a bit more just, grindy damage based for being able to push more damage, gain more life. Not a terrible blocker in aggressive matchups as well. It is really good at sort of just soaking up a bigger attacker that doesn't have trample. gaining you some life, pinging down the opponent, and a really good card to recur with Envoy of the Fallen and Bind Life to steal. 3 copies of Failed Gateway that are kind of aimed at more aggressive decks. 2 copies of Duress. 4 copies of Frag here, and then 2 copies of Final Fate as some really potent removal here between Frag and Final Fate. So that is our players' decks here, and now let's dive into Game 1. Alrighty, we are here in game 1 now. Chip is going to be on the play, as is her right as the higher seed going into this match. And we do have opening hands here. I don't know if either player is going to mulligan these, but as they stand right now, this is 2 lands for Chip between Enigmatic Fen and Erosive Path. Path is really nice here on early turns, just because it is an untapped duel with no pain. You can kind of play Fen tapped on turn 1, because you got no 1-drops, and then run out Erosive Path on turn 2, fire off an Exorcist of Errors. But with Karina's Substitute, Envoy of the Fallen, you're kind of really hoping you find a third or fourth land here to kind of really get things juiced. Venture Capitalist does provide some solutions, though, because a turn 2 Exorcist paves the way for a turn 3 Venture Capitalist to go find that Warpway Rings, give you that third land drop, and try and get you back into this game in a more stable position. And if you can't hit the 4th land drop early, Karina's Substitute can copy Exorcist to go give you a bit more value, or in a pinch, you could just Karina Substitute for you could just Venture Capitalist for have Substitute copy a Venture Capitalist rather to go find a Karina's Journal and set up. I think not Karina's Journal. I have already Stella's Journal. Karina's Substitute. You can go find a Stella's Journal and try and maybe pump some mana into it, but that might require you to have something to sacrifice to Venture Capitalist. Either way, there's not a terrible keep here. I think Venture Exorcist, Venture, Karina's Substitute, Sovereign's Execution. It's a reasonable enough plan. Execution, like the removal, is probably pretty important for picking off the key threats here. Out of Lee, sorry. Force of Habit, really, there. I could see Chip keeping this, but I also wouldn't be stunned to see Chip mulligan this hand. For Lee's part, I think this is a really solid hand. 3 lands between Primal Fissure, Swamp, Mountain. Omen, Skulker, Newborn, Oni are both really important. Smiling Sledge is really good. Inklight Dancer is really good here. Kind of missing the explosive top end pop off card here, but any draw spell really sort of thrusts them into action. And Omen, Skulker, Newborn, Oni are pretty good at getting the ball rolling as well. So let's see who decides to keep or mulligan. Chip keeps, Lee keeps, and we see Enigmatic Fen played versus Lee, then drawing Primal Fissure. I did speed up very briefly to kind of see if they were going to do mulligans, but he moved a little fast. So not surprised by the Enigmatic Fen play. Not surprised by Newborn Oni coming down here. Slightly better attacker than Omen Skulker here early on, so more reasonable to run out. Sanguine Palace is the draw for Chip here, so has this land available. An Exorcist is going to come down here. I imagine Lee is going to separate the Smiling Sludge and Inklight Dancer and probably present Smiling Sludge. There is a strategy here, though, of presenting Sludge, Dancer, Skulker, and trying to convince Chip that you're hiding something important in your hand. But it looks like it's just going to be presenting... it's just presenting Dancer, and that's going to be the piles. So Chip can either take the known Dancer or fish for something unknown and take the Smiling Sludge. I would not hate an Omen Skulker grab if Chip goes for the face-down pile here. And I also don't hate the face-down pile here, because Inklight Dancer is probably the worst of the sacrifice outlets, which feels weird to say, because prior to this month, it was probably the best sack outlet we had. Chip is going to go for the face-down pile here. So we see Lee reveal the hand here. It is going to be the Smiling Sludge instead of the Omen Skulker. I think that's a pretty reasonable, responsible pick, but I think Omen Skulker is also a really worthwhile steal here, just on the basis of it being, a second treasured maker. And the more that this deck has, the more potent its pop-offs can be. Hollowed Chamber is the draw for Lee, flooding out a little bit here. We'll see how much that matters, but with the Smiling Sludge gone, this turn 2 is looking a lot more awkward. Now, of course, you can pump mana into the Newborn... you can pay 1 life, rather, into the Newborn Oni after, making your land drop, and try and fish for seeing if the opponent will block so you can Inklight Dancer. Otherwise, the opponent's just going to bleed 2 life, so there's value in going for that play and seeing if they force out the Inklight Dancer Stroke of Light Adventure. Going for the swamp, concealing the Hollowed Chamber, I think, is wise. Unless Lee finds a second Hollowed Chamber, I see no reason to run this out until it's needed. Just maintain the secrecy because these 2 other lands are known. If anything, I'm not crazy about playing the swamp over the Primal Fisher. Just get these Primal Fishers out before they come in tapped. Though I guess there is also value in saying, these are sacrificable permanents for the sake of specifically Godslaughter Titan. It does look like the play is ultimately just to run out the Ominous Skulker second main, which seems responsible. Chip draws Fabricated Anomaly, so I was going to go ahead and shock in Sanguine Palace, get Karina's Substitute in play, go for that Exorcist of Errors, and punish the Omen Skulker run out here. We're going to get to see the Hollowed Chamber confirmed and see the Inklight Dancer. So Lee playing a really wise move of revealing the Inklight Dancer, hiding the Hollowed Chamber, but you're not going to fool Chip. Chip is just going to take the Inklight Dancer. This was a thing that could have been worth being grabbed to begin with, and Chip does know that there's 2 Primal Fishers here, so without the Sack Outlet and Inklight Dancer, it's really hard for Lee to have anything truly scary here. So this is a pretty commanding start from Chip here, really getting to demonstrate the power of Karina's Substitute in the fair context, just because, Smiling Sludge is gone, Inklight Dancer's gone. Copying Exorcist of Error is really strong when it's already one of the best cards you have available to you in this strategy. Catch Constable is the draw and the play for Lee here, running out and getting a ping off of Omen Skulker, but otherwise, Newborn Oni is not really clear to attack here. Omen Skulker not really clear either. So it's just going to be kind of banking here, holding this Primal Fisher. It's possible that the play then becomes running out the Hollowed Chamber, so that way Catch Constable can trade with an Exorcist of Errors, but that's not going to last for long. Fabricated Anomaly coming in here. We get a Yup from Lee. Make a Puzzle Box from Anomaly. And what's coming down the pike now? So there's another Exorcist in hand from Chip. Does pitch the Exorcist, finds another Anomaly, and then I imagine if there's an attack here, it might very well be with both, and then putting a counter on the Substitute. But I think at the very least, the Substitute's going to get in and put a counter on, get a counter from Anomaly, and it looks like that's all that's getting in here. So Lee has no profitable block here, can just make a block if they want to get a card in their graveyard, but I think you just take the 2 here. And indeed, that is what ends up happening. So not a super blistering gameplay from Chip here in terms of momentum, but still absolutely a lot of good getting done here. And that is a really good draw from Lee here. Deadly Dispute really can propel them back into this by way of turning Omen Skulker or Newborn Oni into a treasure, into a bit of value. We're seeing Primal Fisher played tapped here before anything else is done. I'm not sure I agree with that. I feel like if you got Deadly Dispute, you run it out and kind of get the game rolling, because Deadly Dispute, crack Omen Skulker is a potential 3 sacrificable permanents, not including Primal Fisher. So if you hit Godslaughter Titan in your Deadly Dispute draws, I would rather have the Hollowed Chamber untapped here for the sake of being able to spend 3 mana on Godslaughter Titan, then crack Primal Fisher and get a Godslaughter trigger. Now, granted, Sovereign's Execution is here to sort of spoil the fun with Godslaughter Titan. It looks like Lee did disconnect here, so we'll kind of speed through this. So Godslaughter Titan wouldn't be able to do much if run out here, but I don't know how much Lee would be concerned about this removal. We'll give it a moment for players to resume game actions. It looks like the plan becomes attack with Catch Constable, attack with Newborn Oni, point of power on Newborn Oni at the cost of 1 life. Anomaly choosing to block the Oni here, deeming that, if there's another, the second of 3 Inklight Dancers here to punish the Anomaly, it's not the worst thing in the world. And you can make up for that bit of punish by, forcing that to be all that this turn becomes. Whereas Catch Constable would guaranteed trade with Anomaly. This at least requires the opponent to have something. I think in this context, wow, just going for damage. Interesting. So not choosing to Deadly Dispute the Newborn Oni, just making the treasure out of the exchange. I'm confused as to what the game plan is here from Lee. Holding up Deadly Dispute. So clearly something's up. Chip draws Stella's Journal. Can puzzle box away something here. I wonder... So it ends up being the second Fabricated Anomaly. That seems reasonable. Draws a Gilded Court. Envoy can get back that Fabricated Anomaly, replace the puzzle box. And, like, second Anomaly is not doing a ton here in terms of pressure, but it is putting another body on the board, making it a lot safer to make this attack here. That is attack for 6. Put the opponent to 9. 4 bodies on the board to sack to Envoy in a pinch. I like running out Envoy here. The argument could be that, like, you hold up Sovereign's Execution, but I think if you're holding up Sovereign's Execution, what are you even doing with the rest of your turn? Going to combat here. Just swinging with Exorcist. Oh, and Fabricated Anomaly. Holding back Substitute. So just getting in for 4. We do see Omen Skulker block here. Deadly Dispute? Yep, now the Deadly Dispute's coming down. So using a defensive dispute to soak up damage rather than an offensive dispute. So if you're going to block and lose something in combat anyways, you might as well pop it to Deadly Dispute, draw 2 cards, make 2 treasures here between the Dispute and the Omen Skulker. Let's see what is the draw from Lee. A 6th land is really rough here, but Newborn Oni is also a little awkward. So for the land situation, Lee is on 21 lands. That is almost a third of the lands here. Second main, it looks like Chip is going to go for the Envoy of the Fallen. Make another Anomaly, make an untapped puzzle box that's going to Legend Rule the tapped one. Functionally, all that really needs to happen here is just untapping the puzzle box because you're just making a new one. And that is Envoy in play, 1 Substitute in play. If a second Substitute is seen at any point here now, then Chip has the combo kill. Because Chip can sacrifice Substitute in play with Envoy and then cast the Substitute from hand. So we see Omen Skulker was the draw, runs out Omen Skulker, Newborn Oni, possibly just plays tapped Sanguine Palace, but this is a profoundly rough spot for Lee to be in, just drawing only the 1-drops, really nothing else going on, courtesy of these Exorcistive Errors taking away the 2-drops, and these aren't even the most incredible 2-drops to have access to. We've seen, if Smiling Sludge had been able to hit play, we would have seen 1... Yeah, I think only ever 1 Smiling Sludge trigger thus far. I guess the berry tokens would have probably gotten equipped sooner, but I'm not sure it would have mattered a whole lot. We see Stella's Journal get rummaged away by Chip, really just sort of determined to go find possibly the Substitute here. Sanguine Palace is the new draw with the puzzle box activation at end step, turning the Stella's Journal into a swamp. So it does have the luxury of options here between swamp and Sanguine Palace. I think you might as well just run out the swamp here. And in fact, this is the kill. Lee does not have any deck interaction in their deck that could meaningfully stop the kill. And what Chip can do here is cast Venture Capitalist off of Swamp, Sanguine Palace, go find Karina's Substitute, 3 mana, cast another Karina's Substitute, in response to it, sacrifice the Inklight Dancer holding Substitute. You return the Inklight Dancer, but Envoy is out of range of it. Venture Capitalist's out of range of it. Our venture capitalist is like the only thing that dies to it, and that really doesn't matter. We do see a puzzle box cracked here. We're going to see Karina's substitute get sacrificed here before anything gets done to Envoy. So that is going to be 1 damage to Lee, and Chip will gain 1. And then, yeah, Venture Capitalist goes and finds substitute. And that's going to be game here in game 1. Chip getting to assemble the combo through a sort of grindy mid-range draw, and opponent just not able to do anything through a pair of Exorcist of Errors, just scuttling this first several turns. So Lee sees the writing on the wall. Venture Capitalist goes, finds the second substitute, and that is going to be GG's here in game 1 of the Everrime Finals. Chip asks if there's double Inklight. There is one, but Inklight's just going to pop the Venture Capitalist instead. And that is going to close out this game. So let's hop into game 2 here now. Alrighty, hands are here for game 2. It looks like Lee is going to be on the play here, not at all surprising. And now Lee is the one with the opening hand Envoy. We've got 3 lands here for Lee between Swamp, Mountain, Hollow Chamber, as well as Deadly Dispute, Bind Life to Steal, Omen Skulker, and Envoy of the Fallen. This seems like a really good hand compared to game 1. Turn 1 Omen Skulker, turn 2 Deadly Dispute sets you up with 5 mana available turn 3. And between Envoy the Fallen, Bind Life to Steal, there's going to be a lot of recursive value. So if Deadly Dispute can draw into even just 1 or 2, like even just 1 other good creature to sacrifice, that is going to be a lot of mana, a lot of value, and a lot of damage coming out of Envoy coming over these first several turns. For Chip's part, we see 2 Fabricated Anomalies, 1 Karina Substitute, 1 Venture Capitalist, and 3 lands as well, with Primal Fissure, Enigmatic Fen, and Murky Path. This is going to be a little interesting because this is 3 red cards off of a hand where Primal Fissure is really going to have to get the mountain and carry the weight of these red spells early on. I'm curious to know what Venture Capitalist goes and grabs here. So it is important to note that this is post-sideboarding, so players will be able to have tools in their sideboard. I have to imagine both players at least considered boarding in Golden Bloom of the Silenced, which is relevant for Venture Capitalist here. It's also possible that Crucible of the Burning Sun came in for Chip, and Chip is just planning to play a more mid-rangey plan, because Crucible has cards get exiled and tokens get exiled as they are put into the graveyard, so it shuts off any dice triggers. Notable for Omen Skulker and such, but does not shut off Envoy's sacrifice damage. It does not shut off the sacrifice damage from Godslaughter Titan, nor does it shut off the damage from Smiling Sludge. But again, it will stop the death triggers of Omen Skulker and Newborn Oni and Catch Constable, so that can be relevant as well. We'll see if that comes up here. I'm not sure what else was brought in. Absentia is possible. Frag is possible for both opponents. Final Fate is possible from Lee. We'll see what players have decided to board in as these games go. It looks like players are rearranging hands. Lee decides to keep. Chip kind of getting the hands sorted out here. And fast forward through this opening little stint. Looks like Chip does take some time to think. Seems reasonable. Like this is not quite there, but Chip does ultimately keep 7. Why do I have a skull next to my name? That's new. Interesting. I don't know what the skull is about. I don't see a skull. So we do see Swamp Omen Skulker as the lead from Lee. This is not a shocker at all. Chip does draw another black source, so this Pixel Swamp is not going to really meaningfully help these spells get cast. I think it's just going to be Primal Fissure. Go get a red source at Lee's end step. I actually don't hate Enigmatic Fen here. Because like, are you playing Venture Capital? If you're not playing Venture Capitalist on turn 2, I think Enigmatic Fen tapped and then play Murky Path is reasonable. We do see Lee run out the mountain and draw Primal Fissure as their first draw of the game. Chip is going to, at end step, go find the mountain rather than hold on to it. Goes and finds an All That Remains as draw for turn. Fabricated Anomaly is going to enable that to come online a little bit sooner. I have to imagine it's going to be Murky Path here. It is indeed. And Chip is just going to ship on over. And this is what I mean. I don't know how much I love running out the, like, second land untapped here with the mind for, like, Venture Capitalist is not getting cast this turn anyways. But we do see, Deadly Defeat's going to go draw 2 cards, make 2 treasures, and we see Final Fate was in fact boarded in. Picks off Exorcist Affairs, picks off Venture Capitalist. Some relevant things for Final Fate to hit, but it's also just good to wind up in your graveyard and then kill anything with mana value 3 or greater. Or less. It's really effective removal spell. And then Newborn Oni also drawn, as well as an Enigmatic Fen here. The Newborn Oni, like I mentioned, this is going to be exactly what Lee wants to see here. I almost wonder if the play would be, pay life, pop Newborn Oni with your own Final Fate here. That might be going a little deep in the tank, but I can't help but be morbidly curious to know if that idea crossed through Lee's mind at all. Another mountain is the draw for Chip. So yeah, that Primal Fisher finding the mountain was still important, but it turns out that another mountain was in the future anyhow. Anomaly is going to come down here, tee up the puzzle box, and the puzzle box is going to be able to get this All That Remains in the Graveyard here, most likely the discard at Lee's end step. Lee is going to untap and draw, holding this Primal Fisher for a relevant reason to crack it. Does draw a mountain. There are only 6 basics in the deck, so we have seen 3 of the 6. Lee's going to pay 1 life, put Oni up to a 2/1, and swing into the Anomaly, knowing full well that if Chip blocks, that is going to be another treasure for them. And, that enables Envoy to get back 2 things here. That's pretty reasonable. And, Envoy is much better to run out compared to Bind Life to Steal for the simple fact that, Bind Life can get back the Envoy later on. It can also just 3 mana get back both of these 1-drops later on. So Bind Life, really safe to just hold on to compared to Envoy. We'll see what the play ends up being here, but I have to assume that play was made with Envoy in mind. So we'll see what comes out here now. It's going to be Enigmatic Fen tapped. Oh, untapped, shocking it in, and then cracking Primal Fisher. Go get that 4th basic out of the deck. 2 basics remain. It's going to be a swamp here, so 1 of each basic, good for the next fetch. And then Envoy of the Fallen is going to be able to get back both of those 1-drops. So that is 5 power, 5 toughness in play for 4 mana with some value over time. All That Remains getting pitched to the puzzle box indeed. Exorcist revealed just a moment too late to snag the Envoy of the Fallen. And Chip is now staring down a couple bodies that might be a bit of trouble. Second Venture Capitalist is the draw, but the unfortunate thing is no artifact is going to be removing any of these anytime soon. Chip could, if it was boarded in Venture Capitalist, to go find the one of copy of Crucible of the Burning Sun here. Just shut off the Envoy, the Omen Skulker. Shut off the Omen Skulker and Newborn Oni a little bit. Does choose to loot away the Krina Substitute first here. Notably, Golden Bloom does also shut off your own combo. Or sorry, not Golden Bloom. Crucible of the Burning Sun does shut off your own combo. But the nice thing about Venture Capitalist is not only can it go find your hate piece, it can also sacrifice your hate piece when it's time to unlock your combo, which is really effective. But it seems like the plan is ultimately just to All That Remains try and dig for something more valuable here. Gets an Archaic Obelisk, binning 2 more lands. So the binned lands do open the door for Fabricated Anomaly to swing in here. Exorcist is gonna peek at the hand here. I imagine just pick off Final Fate. Oh, Bind Life to Steal is what's getting offered here. Yeah, I mean, the graveyard is empty, so Bind Life is not awful to lose here, and then you can Final Fate the moment you want to unlock it. But Chip is going to look at the hand, so Final Fate gets taken away, but Bind Life to Steel is unfettered. We'll see what else happens here. I have to imagine attacking is just an awful exchange for Chip here. Yep, decides not to attack. So Enigmatic Fen tapped and then passes over. Frag is the draw for Lee, so that is going to be able to free up the Final Fate. But I honestly wonder, like, is it just better to fire off Frag, kill the Fabricated Anomaly? One other consideration, you could pay the life into Newborn Oni, just swing the Envoy of the Fallen. If the opponent double blocks, you sacrifice both of your 1-drops. That's not a great plan. I think you still need a little bit more value, but one more like little bit of draw burst, and I think Lee is just running away with this. It is scary how much damage this deck can put out in just the blink of an eye. But every life is precious in this situation for Chip, so attacking with this Envoy might be worth blocking and just forcing the Bind Life to Steel to come into effect. We're going to see the Frag come down, kill the Exorcist of Errors, free up this Final Fate. But Final Fate still has no valid targets. This Venture Capitalist will be able to get Final Fated later on, but while it sits in hand, is not really going to be hit by anything yet. And rewarded for holding back the Anomaly, keeping the Newborn Oni from swinging in freely, but that's going to be 3 damage to Chip, gain 3 life for Lee. Hallowed Chamber untapped, courtesy of the 1 mountain. And yeah. Now, every resource is known for Lee. This Final Fate, Bind Life to Steel, Mountain are all known to Chip. That is a 3rd Venture Capitalist. I don't know how much any of these really matter in this situation, unless Chip explicitly boarded in like tech for Venture Capitalists to shut down what's going on here. I don't know what the game plan is going to be. So we are going to see Puzzle Box loot something away. I imagine it's going to be a Venture Capitalist at this point. You don't need 3. It's Fabricated Anomaly. Interesting. So Misty Peak is now in hand. Could go Archaic Obelisk here, mill 2 and dig. I'm not quite sure what Chip is digging for, though. So does, in fact, go for the Archaic Obelisk. Leaves themselves open with a red and 1. Could, in a pinch here, just fire off Venture Capitalist, go grab Warpway Rings. Just make that the land drop. So one of the things to consider here is also just current damage totals. Envoy right now doesn't deal a ton of damage. There's 4 damage on board from Envoy triggers, with Omen Skulker Sack, Newborn Oni Sack, Bind Life to Steel, get them both back, Skulker Sack, Oni Sack. But any other damaging source besides an Envoy really does amp up the pressure that provides, which is to say Godslaughter Titan or a Smiling Sludge here really does increase the pressure significantly, because Smiling Sludge will deal 1 damage when each of these is sacrificed, whenever one of the treasures is sacrificed. So Smiling Sludge, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 from treasure, 9 from treasure. Sacrifice the Smiling Sludge to deal 2 more. That is 10, 11. Bind Life to Steel. X is 2. Get back the 1-drops and Smiling Sludge. So that was 11. 13, 14, 15, 16. Spend 2 mana, equip 2 berries, swing 5, 5. It gets blocked. 17, 18 from the Smiling Sludge triggers on the berries getting sacrificed as part of their ability. So yeah, it was Archaic Obelisk ultimately milling a second Karina substitute as well as a Sovereign's Execution. They play a Misty Peak from their hand and Venture Capitalist for Stella's Journal, paying 2 life into the Misty Peak to get it for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is... Hold on. Oh, yeah, no. Murky Path and Enigmatic Fen are unique. So, yeah, costs 5 less, paying 1 into Stella's Journal. So, these venture capitalists here are not going to be long term. Cracks Hollow Chamber at the end step here. Interesting. Just gets more treasures in play. So, a Smiling Sludge draw here or a Godslaughter Titan is lethal as hell. Final Fate is instead the draw, so I imagine that's just going to be Final Fate, Flashback, Final Fate, kill these 2 creatures. Yeah, Final Fate, kill 1, Flashback, Final Fate, kill the other, pay 1 life into Newborn Oni. That's 2, 3, 6. Take opponent to 8. Gain 3 here. So end up at 22. And then Bind Life to Seal currently only representing 4 damage, but that is a significantly larger chunk of the opponent's health now. So with 2 Venture Capitalists in hand, if there is not like real meaningful solutions to this problem, this could be curtains for Chip. Now, of course, there's also 2 Karina substitutes in the graveyard, so an Envoy of the Fallen draw is lethal. That is Crucible of the Burning Sun, however. That is actually not going to cut it here. Currently, there is lethal through Crucible of the Burning Sun, even if you deploy both of these blockers. Actually, not if you deploy both of these blockers, because specifically the Final Fate gets exiled by Crucible of the Burning Sun, so it does not actually get to remove both blockers. Puzzle Box loots away Crucible for a Warpway Rings. Rather unfortunate draw here. Can go Venture Capitalist for something, but I'm not sure what Venture Capitalist even meaningfully grabs. I almost wonder if the correct play is, Warpway Rings, Venture Capitalist, go get the last Karina substitute, and then play the substitute as just a 1/4. Because then it blocks the Envoy of the Fallen, and yeah, your opponent can final fating it is actually terrible. Oh no, getting rid of the Crucibles are really bad. And of course, right now, Crucible did not single-handedly represent survival, but Mountain Crucible Capitalist, while you do lose the value of Venture Capitalist, like if you're not searching up Crucible of the Burning Sun, you're not searching up either of these anymore. I'm not sure what you're searching up with Venture Capitalist. So, like, I would honestly just Venture Capitalist, get rid of the Warpway Rings in deck. Venture Capitalist, get rid of, I don't know, maybe, get rid of an exile, like, Programmed Pursuer, because you are not in a position to be attacking anymore. Or, like, Golden Bloom, if you found it, maybe you want to keep it, maybe you want to get rid of it. Oh, it is going to be Venture Capitalist, go find Golden Bloom of the Silenced. Interesting. Does hold the Warpway Rings to do so. So Lee is considering this in response. Golden Bloom can name Envoy, make it a textless 3/3. This is an interesting situation here. So Chip is able to shut off Envoy, but that is still just a 3/3, so it would need to get blocked to stop Lee from hitting Chip for 3. But then that's 3 damage still getting through across these, and then you lose the venture capitalist. It's kind of a rough situation. Maybe in this context, it is worth getting programmed pursuer. No, because there's still the final fate. The final fate's still a problem. Uh, Here, though, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Chip knows about the second final fate. So chooses smiling sludge. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, this is just Chip being dead now because final fate flashback final fate is lethal. 6 damage on board, sacrifice, sacrifice. That's 8. You don't even need the bind to life to steal. Yeah, so that's going to be game 2 going to Lee here. I will say, I saw Chip saying something about regretting shocking in a Misty Peak and asking if, like, if there was like 2 more life, did you have enough damage? Um, there is absolutely more damage here because there is lethal without the bind life to steal. Oh, Deadly Dispute's also really good. Granted, not more damage in this context, but you fire off the final fates and maybe a Deadly Dispute envoy before you go for bind life to steal, and so you bind life X is 2 instead of X is 1 to get back your creatures. Oh wow, going for Deadly Dispute, sacrificing a treasure first, finds 2 more Omen Skulkers. Oh my god. Who needs Final Fate? That's lethal on its own. Skulker, Skulker, sacrifice your 4/1 drops, deal 4, find life to steal, X is 2, get back all of your 1 drops, deal 4. That's 8 damage. Who needs to remove blockers? Wow. Really good Deadly Dispute here. That's a lot more damage from Lee here, and that is going to be the game in game in game 2. So that's going to be bringing us to game 3. Presumably Chipmunk on the draw in game 3. But let's just see all of it get played out. Chip knows there's the bind life to steal here. And Chip's just staring at 2 lands with the Sanguine Palace drawn off of Stella's journal. Yep, Chip says dead to bind life to steal. Alrighty. That is going to be game 2. Let's see how game 3 shapes up. Alrighty, game 3 here. It looks like Chip is going to be on the play, and we do see that Fiend of the Crimson Pact is boarded in for Chipmunk here. Is Sovereign's Execution Frag, Fiend of the Crimson Pact. So a very slow hand, but a very reactive hand here between Execution and Frag. We also see Warpway Rings, Misty Peak, Sanguine Palace, and Swamp. For Lee, this is a 2-lander, but Mountain Hollow Chamber is a pretty good pair of lands here, especially when Newborn Oni wants to be your 1-drop. That Mountain being turn 1 is pretty nice. There's also a Smiling Sludge, a Bind Life to Steal, and a pair of Envoy of the Fallens, which is really good between 2-drop, 1-drop here. So we'll see what shapes up here if players decide to keep. I imagine if I'm Chip, I'm not keeping this. This is a little too sluggish, and you really do want a little bit more momentum going. But the removal spells are nice. It's just, the opponent is such a recursive deck that the removal spells can be awkward. I think Frag is still good enough that it's worth boarding in, but it has its flaws in this matchup in particular. So speed things up a little bit. Looks like Chip mulls to 6 here, but Lee decides to keep. So for Chip's 6 here, that is a Primal Fisher. Oh, that's a really unfortunate 1-lander. Primal Fisher, substitute, Execution Obelisk, Exorcist Envoy. On the play, this is a pretty near unkeepable hand. So Chip thinks about it for a little bit. I think decides to mulligan. Yeah, mulls to 5. Keeps 5. So we see here another 1-lander. That's gotta be unfortunate. So double Envoy, Substitute, Obelisk, Capitalist, and Exorcist here. I think if I'm Chip, I'm getting rid of Obelisk and Envoy, keeping 1 combo piece Envoy. Venture Capitalist can go find your 3rd land drop if you can just hit a red source. And Exorcist can give you a little bit of staying power if you can find that red source in the first place. So let's see what ends up happening here. Does put away Envoy Is it Substitute? Is it Obelisk? I think it's got to be. Oh, it is the Venture Capitalist. Oh no, Chip, that's a land drop you put away. Granted, you do need a second land to do that, but if you're not hitting your second land drop, you're never hitting your third. Does draw the second land, notably is not a red source, so kind of indicated for not running out that Venture Capitalist there, but still. I'm a little heartbroken to see Venture Capitalist get put away there. So we know it's going to be Exorcist here. We do see Omen Skulker's the draw for Lee as well. That is a really good draw here. Exorcist comes down. I imagine you just reveal Envoy and say, you know, go ahead, take an Envoy. Like, it's possible Chip just bites the bait there on the Envoy. So we are seeing some thinking about piles. I'll speed things up a little bit here. It looks like... oh, wow. That is everything but the Smiling Sludge revealed. Okay. That is interesting. Wow, with a little bit of letter jumbling here. Yeah, this is a crazy pile. Just determining, like, go ahead. See if I have 2 lands in hand. Because this is a really, really gutsy gambit. Sludge is really good to run out on turn 2 here. It's really unfortunate to lose. But if you reveal things that aren't appealing to the opponent, it's possible that Sludge gets sniped anyways. So this is actually a really clever Exorcist play from Lee here. Reveal a lot of really key cards in this matchup and say, hey, I've got 2 lands in hand. Do you really want to see the 2 lands in hand, or do you just want to, you know, get value out of your Exorcist Surveyors? And that is one of the things that makes Exorcist so risky, is that despite it being such a powerful 2-drop, it is not perfect. It is a mind game on a stick. And so we might see that mind game do its work here. We might see Lee protect the Smiling Sludge by way of convincing Chip that it is 2 lands in hand. Chip goes for the hand. It is going to be the Smiling Sludge. And this is its own, you know, hat trick as well. If Lee, you know, figures, you know, Smiling Sludge is really good, but if I lose it, I lose it. Lee says, this is the part where I sadly didn't have the amazing mind games. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be super thrilled to lose the Smiling Sludge here. But Lee points out, I could have. And I actually think this is not the worst case scenario here, because the worst case scenario for Lee is that you lock Chip into taking the Smiling Sludge. There is no more choice here. If Chip would have rather taken one of these other cards, that's no longer on the table. So, you know, either way you slice it, that is actually a really clever gambit to present to Chipmunk here. And even if it didn't work out in Lee's favor, I think that was still a stellar play. So, draws another Hollow Chamber here, which will be untapped much like this first one, which is really good here. And, you know, Omen Skulker is not quite the same. But swings in with the Newborn Oni, goading Chip to block here. I think what we've seen here is that this Newborn Oni attack is really risky to block here, even though your life is so precious against this Aristocrats deck. This Oni is just so risky to block and kill because of the fact that killing it means that they get mana. And mana is really valuable to this deck. Chip does value the life more, though, so he's going to kill the Newborn Oni. We won't see an Inklate Dancer here, so the Exorcist does survive, protect the Smiling Sludge from coming down here, but this treasure means that Omen Skulker coming down, Envoy of the Fallen's not too far behind. And passes back to Chip. We could see a third land. Unfortunate. We do see the Venture Capitalist make its return, but this is the benefit to keeping the Archaic Obelisk, is that, you know, can use this to go dig for that second land, or third land. Fabricated Anomaly, Sanguine Palace. I think you get the Palace, because you now have a clear line to victory. You pop the charge counter, Palace represents your third land drop. Substitute number 1, substitute number 2 off of Venture Capitalist. Lee's saying, so I was right, you are missing land drops. Yeah, Lee correctly deducing that. Sanguine Palace comes down here tapped. That is what ends up happening. And yeah, Venture Capitalist represents the represents the second substitute off of 5 mana. So now it's just a matter of making to that 5 mana point before you die. Sundering the Fleet is a crazy draw, though. Because now, Hollow Chamber, Sundering the Fleet, sack Omen Skulker, make a treasure, Envoy of the Fallen, get back Omen Skulker, get back Newborn Oni, immediately refund 2 mana, draw these 2 cards. They could be huge. God Slaughter Titan, Omen Skulker. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is this could be really devastating. So for this turn, I think if you're Lee, you just go 4 mana Envoy of the Fallen. But that is 1 permanent sacrificed. Godslaughter Titan is in hand, currently 5 mana, 4 mana, 3 mana if these treasures get popped, 2 mana if Hollowed Chamber gets popped. So you could pop Hollowed Chamber, spend the treasures. It is going to be Hollowed Envoy of the Fallen, not Godslaughter Titan. But the other thing to note here, you could then pop these creatures and cast the Godslaughter Titan anyways. You've got another Envoy here. It is going to be that. We see Newborn Oni sacrificed. Omen Skulker sacrificed. Two mana. Godslaughter Titan's coming down as well. Envoy Godslaughter, good luck. This Omen Skulker not going to be super effective by itself, but I mean, any land drop means that this Envoy in hand is going to get to do some work as well, rebuild the board. And I think if Lee draws an untapped land, that is going to be curtains on Chipmunk here. We see Fiend of the Crimson Pact is the draw, so no 4th land drop. Mills the Warboy rings off of Archaic Obelisk, so Venture Capitalist can't solve that problem. Can Karina substitute at least use Exorcist to try and pick off the other Envoy? But with Envoy and Bind Life to steal, I'm not sure how much that matters. Man, and you can also just Mountain, crack Hollowed Chamber, use one of the treasures, crack Hollowed Chamber. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Omen Skulker, sack Omen Skulker. 7, crack the treasure, that's 8. Bind Life to steal, get back 2 of these. That's 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 Godslaughter Titan triggers. You need 9 to resolve to kill the opponent, so that's 3 that eat away at the opponent. Reveal the 2 cards the opponent knows about, could just lose the Omen Skulker, which is not the worst case scenario if the opponent goes for it. And like Bind Life to Steal is really bad here for Chip, because right now it just represents the Omen Skulker and the Newborn Oni, which again represents a lot of damage with Godslaughter Titan and Envoy. And I said, that represents 12 Godslaughter Titan triggers. You only need 9 to kill the opponent, but in this scenario of, crack these Hollowed Chambers, play the Omen Skulker, and then, get Bind Life to steal here, that's also 3 Envoy triggers to deal damage. And then you can get a 4th by sacrificing Godslaughter Titan, which will get you your 13th Godslaughter Titan trigger. So that's actually putting the opponent to 14. Couple that 14 to 13 Godslaughter Titan triggers, 7 need to resolve, which means that the opponent needs to fizzle 7 and only take 6. And unfortunately, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 permanents, just enough to be incapable of dealing with Godslaughter Titan. If this Bind Life to steal, if this Envoy of the Fallen gets taken instead of Bind Life to steal, this is game. We'll see what Chip ends up doing, but as it stands, Bind Life to Steal plus Omen Skulker is lethal. We'll see what happens here. And of course, a removal spell for Smiling Sledge, while not immediately lethal, or sorry, a removal spell for the original Exorcist, rather, while not immediately lethal, is really strong. It's the Envoy! Oh no! Envoy's hype getting ahead of itself. Lee has lethal in hand now. Chip not knowing about this Omen Skulker means that Chip has presented Lee with lethal. So let's go over that math one more time. Bind life to steal here. Oh, Chip says, wait, let me think. So while Chip thinks over this a little bit more, let's go over that math one more time. Envoy can sacrifice Omen Skulker. You can go Mountain into Hollow Chamber, crack a treasure into Hollow Chamber, turn your 3 mana of lands into 3 permanents in play. Into 3 treasures in play. That's 2 Godslaughter Titan triggers. So let's count up 2 Godslaughter Titans. Sorry, 3, because you also crack a treasure to activate the second Hollow Chamber. So that's 3 Godslaughter Titan triggers, 0 Envoy triggers. Opponent at 18. You need to have the opponent die while still sacrificing 6 permanents to Godslaughter Titan. And this is, of course, not including attacks, because these creatures can also just attack, which really, really solves the lethal puzzle here. But even without attacking, 3 Godslaughter Titan triggers just from the Hollow Chambers, with 3 treasures to spare. Crack a treasure, 4th Godslaughter Titan trigger. Omen Skulker. Sacrifice the Skulker to Envoy of the Fallen. That is your 5th Godslaughter Titan trigger and your first Envoy activation. Cast Bind Life to steal. X is 2 off of the 2 treasures you have left from Hollow Chamber plus the 1 from Omen Skulker. Get back 2 Omen Skulkers. That is 3 more treasures sacrificed. So that's the 5 Godslaughter Titan triggers plus 3 to 8. Get back 2 more Omen Skulkers. Sacrifice those 2 Omen Skulkers to Envoy of the Fallen for 2 more Envoy triggers. For 2 more points of Envoy damage. Sacrifice the treasures to get 2 more mana for Godslaughter Titan to deal a total of 4 more to do 12. So 12 Godslaughter Titan triggers plus Envoy of the Fallen, dealing 4. So the opponent has to exile their whole board, take 12 from Godslaughter Titan, take 4 from Envoy, go to 2, and then die to combat. And then can just sacrifice Godslaughter Titan, or sorry, go to 3. Or can go to 1 and like keep one of their creatures, but then just dies to combat. The draw here is Sundering the Fleet. I mean, this is still so much damage even without having the Bind Life to steal, but I will say Sundering the Fleet is a lot less explosive than Bind Life to steal here. So let's see if the lethal puzzle can still be solved. Opponent at 18, Envoy and Godslaughter Titan in play. Titan has to be blocked or else it is just getting through, and it is killing something if it gets in. So that is a sacrifice trigger that is unable to be negated. Oh, God, and another really worst case scenario for Chip here. If you exile any one of your lands to Godslaughter Titan, that card can be played to give Lee another point of mana for more damage. That's got to be rough, too. Cracks a treasure for a mana, for presumably a black mana. That's another Godslaughter Titan trigger. Chip takes 2. Casts Omen Skulker. Down to 2 lands. Could go all in on the Hollow Chamber here. We'll see. What's coming out here now? I think what's most interesting about this line is probably Crack Treasure, activate Hollow Chamber. 2 Godslaughter Titan triggers. Make 2 treasures. Crack 1 treasure to Sundering the Fleet, the Omen Skulker. Actually, hold on. Crack Treasure, Godslaughter Titan trigger. Opponent takes 2. Use that into Hollow Chamber. Opponent takes 2. Crack Treasure, cracked Treasure. Opponent takes 4. You go to 6. This is a complicated turn here, but we're seeing the strength of Aristocrats on full display. Sundering the Fleet So that is going to be crack the Omen Skulker before cracking the Hollow Chamber. Draws another Hollow Chamber. Oh my god. Gets a treasure from Omen Skulker here. Wait. Hold on. Omen Skulker makes a treasure here. The treasure was missed. Yeah, Lee should still have a treasure. Interesting. So this attack is still really good. But yeah, we're also seeing Godslaughter Titan plus Hollow Chamber really putting in work. So we see Chip thinking here for a while on blocking. And the risk here is, of course, both of these creatures that could block represent a really, really strong card going back to the opponent's hand. Does block with the Karina's Substitute. So that is Bind Life to Steel returned. I don't know if that block happens if Lee doesn't miss the Omen Skulker treasure. It's possible, but I think that block seems a lot worse with Omen Skulker treasure being around. So that treasure being gone is notable. I think there is another turn that Chip gets here from Lee missing that trigger. Primal Fissure gets played and passes the turn to Chip. Misty Peak's not gonna good. Mills 2 with our Obelisk. Mills land. Swamp Primal Fissure, not what you're looking to mill here. Envoy of the Fallen could get Karina Substitute, get Fabricated Anomaly, but like, I mean, yeah, you can Envoy of the Fallen, get Karina Substitute, have it copy Obelisk, and then have have it copy Exorcist, and then take the Bind Life to Steal again. Though I think at this point, you see your opponent setting up here. They can Primal Fissure Hollow Chamber at end of turn, get 4 mana. I think you take the Envoy at this point, seeing these be available. But even then, like, what do you do at this point? So we see Chip tanking for a little bit here, thinking about what to do, but I think it is just curtains for Chip one way or another. Thinking about it. Does end up going for Venture Capitalist here. Might be a little late for Golden Bloom of the Silenced. Okay, so Golden Bloom on Godslaughter Titan. That's interesting. But takes 2 from the Misty Peak to do so. Cast Golden Bloom, Primal Fissure crack, Godslaughter trigger. Takes the 2. And I mean, you've got a Golden Bloom the Godslaughter here. You can't really afford to let them untap with this compared to Envoy. You know they have an Envoy. So you've got to name Godslaughter Titan. But Envoy, like, if you're just taking this damage from Godslaughter Titan, you might have to name Envoy. And even then, you gave back their Bind Life to Steal. I guess there's no way to sacrifice things if you give back the Bind Life to Steal, but you're still putting yourself in a really precarious position. Because you have 2 creatures that can block, and neither of them meaningfully block the creatures currently in play. So you're going to 4. And if you Golden Bloom on Envoy instead of on Godslaughter Titan, then you're accepting that these treasures deal 2 to you or exile one of your permanents while giving your opponent a resource. And that's not considering the Hollow Chamber here, which means that your opponent's going to have to take, that Chip's going to have to take 2 and exile 3 permanents before making blocks. Yeah, this is a really rough Golden Bloom here. He is going to name God Slaughter Titan. That's not going to matter. You know the opponent has Envoy. You know the opponent has Envoy because you let them keep the Envoy and you gave back Bind Life to steal. But yeah, the Envoy is lethal now, as is Bind Life to steal. Smiling Sledge just makes this even more egregious. Just reveals the hand. Says, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of damage. So how do you want to die? It's a crazy way to end this match. Oh my god. That is an incredible flex there in chat. Again, I do think that Lee had the lethal the previous turn, or was really close to the lethal, but just forgot to make the treasure off the Omen Skulker and gave Chip a small window there. But not quite able to recover, even with the Golden Bloom locking off one of those potent cards. You know, Envoy's not the only threat out of Aristocrats here. So congratulations to Lihlosaur on the win with Envoy Black-Red Aristocrats, taking down the Grixis Envoy combo deck. So that is going to wrap up Grand Prix Everrime. Once again, congratulations to Lee here for a pretty explosive victory through a really tight three-game series, and a really solid run overall. That is going to conclude our month of Revolution Custom Standard. Again, next month we will be picking up with Eternal Play, so keep your eyes peeled for the monthly patch notes video for that, as well as the discussion in that patch notes video for how Eternal might have changed over the last year. Also keep your eyes peeled next month, because we're getting ready to head into preview season for the next rotation of Revolution Custom Standard, heading into January 1st. Don't know exactly when we'll find out what's getting announced, but I'd imagine we're going to find out what the set is going to be sooner rather than later, because the set submission window was moved up from the usual set submission time. So we'll find out what's going on soon enough. We might even find out before the TB begins, but I'm not going to throw too much out there. Obviously, the curators deserve to have time to breathe and, you know, dig through everything. That's part of why the window is moved up, so the curators have more breathing room with these things. So we'll see how things shake out. I'm really excited to dive into Eternal. I'm really excited to get to do another set review next month. Lots of fun coming down the line. Hope you all enjoyed this match. Of course, if you haven't already, you really should go check out DrChipmunk's perspective. Link is once again in the description below. Stellar player, and even if this match didn't go her way, this deck that she brought was really, really clever, and I'm really excited to... I really encourage you to see how she approached this match from her perspective and in her words. So go give that video a check out. In fact, check out her channel in its entirety. I believe she also uploaded today sort of a retrospective on her 14 months of competing, which is crazy with her current GP record and the number of wins she has, that she's only been playing 14 months. Talking about the 14 decks she's played and sort of ranking them overall against each other. Really fun video. I'd also recommend giving that a check. Maybe I'll link it in the end card here. But yeah, that is going to bring our entirety of this month to a close. So I hope you all take care. I hope you all had a lot of fun, and I hope I'll see you all in the Revolution chat. Bye-bye.